Hello, and greetings from Smathers Beach in sunny Key West, Florida. Today I'd like to talk to you about active listening, but before we do that, I just want to say that it's great to be here in Key West, and I promised you a lecture from the beach, so I'm going to fulfill my lecture now. This is not the first take on the lecture. I did one the other day and ran into all kinds of complications. First of all, it was very windy, and the wind just ruined the sound quality. Today we've got a distraction. We have a tractor coming by right now that is cleaning the beach, and so you're going to hear this noise of the tractor cleaning the beach. So hopefully he'll be finished here in a minute and go on to the other part of the beach. And then the other funny part of what happened to the lecture the other day was that just when I was talking about the famous psychologist Carl Rogers and his ideas about keeping your mind from wandering when you're speaking to someone, who should walk in front of the camera by the video here I'm taking but two girls in bikinis. And I couldn't help but think about how people are going to be watching them and not listening to my lecture. So it seemed to be sort of funny. So maybe if I could get the tech people at Scranton to put some of these funny parts together, we'll do an outtakes or bloopers part at the end of the whole series. So this will be a second take on here, and hopefully we won't have too many distractions, and hopefully we won't have girls in bikinis walking in front of the camera. Sorry about that, whatever. Okay, well, let's take a look at active listening, and let's see what some of the ideas we have about this. 20 years ago, John Nesbitt, in his book Megatrends, spoke of the future world focused on high-tech, longing for high-touch. This high-tech world that he forecast would take us far away from our nuclear families, communicating with our colleagues by email and faxes and cell phones rather than face-to-face conversation. In fact, he talked about a time when people would drive home at night and use their automatic garage door openers to get into the garage without saying hello to their neighbors. Again, to lose that touch of community and to lose that touch of communication. Our new way of living, working, and commuting would be void of any connection with others. Today we find ourselves much like Nesbitt had forecast, isolated in our niche, in our cubicle and lifestyle. Membership in civic, religious, and organizations has declined over the years because in many ways we've lost our ability to connect. Just look at how I'm conducting this class with you. Rather than having a traditional class where I'd be standing in the classroom and back of a podium and you sitting a few feet away from me, we're now separated over cyberspace, 1,500 miles apart perhaps, and doing a course on the internet. So far different from what the old traditional ways of communicating and teaching were all about. So let us take a look at communication and let's see what we can learn by it and how we can improve our communication skills. The two main parts of communication, as you would imagine, are talking and listening. Scientific research has showed that people are able to think about 300 words per minute. On the flip side, we can only speak at 150 to 200 words per minute. Unless, of course, you're one of those folks that rattling off the disclaimer at the end of a radio spot advertising a new car lease. So what happens when we think faster than we speak? Well, our minds begin to wander, and we are thinking about other things, and we're not really connecting with the speaker. Most of us like to talk. Very few of us like to listen. Yet the ability to listen and respond can make all the difference in a relationship, on the job, in the home, or with friends. The dilemma that we have today is that we have this capacity to take in much more information than we can divulge at any given time. So what do we do with this excess capacity? As I just said, we wander, our mind starts to wander. We eavesdrop on other conversations. We drift away and suddenly miss important thoughts of what the other person is speaking to us. Carl Rogers, the famous psychologist, once said the biggest block to personal communication is man's inability to listen intelligently, understandably, and skillfully to another person. So great is our need for hunger and validation that good listeners are prized. Psychologists, for example, earn a living today by listening to others and providing responses that help validate what other people are saying. Take, for instance, two people having lunch, Steve and Joe. Steve says to Joe, you know, I think Jackie and I are going to get a divorce. Joe looks up at Steve and says, oh, by the way, are you having ham and cheese or the turkey on rye? Again, a perfect example of how we fail to connect with the other person when they're speaking. The speaker on this example that I gave you wanted the other person to be invested in the story. He took a great chance to share something very deep and serious in his life with another person. He wanted validation from his story. Listening is more than hearing. It's a level of involvement that goes beyond the sheer notion of just hearing. Ray Birdwhistell, the pioneer in nonverbal communication, estimated that in a normal two-person conversation, verbal components carry less than 35% of the social meaning of the situation, whereas nonverbal communication counts for about 65% of the communication that goes on. Some time ago, Carl Rogers developed this concept that he refers to as active listening. He was concerned about how we can help our employees gain a clearer understanding of our situation, take responsibility and cooperation with each other. He called his idea active listening. It is called active because the listener has a definite responsibility. He is not passively absorbing what is being said, but he actively tries to grasp the facts and the meanings of the conversation. By this listening, he tries to reach out to the speaker, and he tries to connect to the speaker. When people listen sensitively, they tend to listen to themselves with more care and make clear exactly what their feelings are and thinking. Listening provides more information than any other activity. It builds deep positive relationships and tends to alter constructively the attitudes of the listener. Listening is a growth experience. Let me share with you some thoughts on how to become a better listener. First of all, you don't want to present a threat to anyone's self-picture. Each of us carries around in our hip pocket an image of ourselves, a picture of ourselves. And the last thing we want to do as another person communicating to that person is to present a threat to their image. So whatever their picture may be of themselves, whether it be clear, whether it be fuzzy, whether it be positive or whether it be not so positive, the last thing you want to do is make that person try to validate their self-image or to judge their self-image. Don't present a threat to their self-picture. Second point I want you to keep in mind, listen for total meaning. When someone says something, it's more than just the sheer words, but there's a meaning in back of it. For instance, your secretary brings a report down and throws it down on your paper and says, "Here, I finished that damn report." Well, she's saying much more to you than the fact that the report is finished. What you need to do is try to pick up on the feelings. You need to say such things as, "Well, I guess you're glad to have that over with," or "Sounds to me like you had a difficult time with that." So listen for total meaning. And another thing you want to try to do is put your whole self into the conversation. First of all, let me give you some do's. Your body language is so important. You want to send a positive message to the speaker. So you need to lean forward to the speaker. You need to show interest in what the speaker's saying. Maintain good eye contact. Now, you don't want to have 100% eye contact because that's going to make people too uncomfortable. And yet at the same time, you want to have zero eye contact where you're off looking or looking over their shoulders to see who else is in the room or something like that. But maintain eye contact between 40 to 60% of the conversation. Open up your arms and your body. Relax your body's posture. Face your partner. And smile and nod at times. Now, let me give you some don'ts. On the don't side, you don't want to point your finger. You don't want to cover your mouth. You don't want to fiddle with jewelry or tap your pencil or cross your arms against your chest or put your hands on your hips or glance away from the person or swing your legs or anything like that that would be distracting from what the person is saying. Again, you want to be able to respond to feelings. You want to be able to say to that person, "Well, tell me more. How are you feeling?" You want to be able to note all cues. As we've just said, you know, the communication process is nonverbal as well as verbal, so you want to pick up on the nonverbals as well. Do they smile? Is there hesitation in their voice? Do they seem to have stress, or do they seem to emphasize certain points that you need to pick up on? And the last thing is so important, let me go back to this, is you don't want to present that threat to their personal image. You don't want to judge them. You don't want to try to make them justify or reason why they made a certain decision. With all this said and done, let me give you a very simple skill building exercise that I've used over the years. And if you do this exercise, I think you're really going to gain in interpersonal communication, particularly when it comes to listening to the other person. You'll find this exercise on Blackboard right below this lecture. But let me just highlight some of the points of it. I want you to pick a partner, and I'd like for you to, with the partner, take a topic for debate. And take somewhat of a controversial topic. It could be anything from presidential politics to abortion to divorce to legalized drugs or foreign policy of the United States. And I'd like, just for the sake of the argument, for one person to take the pro point of view, and then I'd like the other person to take the counter point of view. And here's what you have to do. I want you to argue back and forth, but before you make your counterpoint of view, you've got to repeat back, listen, active listening, repeat back what the speaker just said to you. For instance, let's say that I'm debating the topic of abortion, and the person has said to me, well, I think abortion is murder. Well, before I counter that point, I need to repeat back to them, to their satisfaction, what they've just said. Well, if I'm hearing you correctly, you're saying abortion is murder, but I think a woman should have a right to choose. And they, of course, would say, well, you're saying a woman should have a right to choose, but I feel. And you keep going on that. Now, you don't want to parrot back exactly word for word what they're saying, or that they're going to feel terribly uncomfortable. You need to paraphrase as best as you can. And when you build up this skill, you'll learn different ways of paraphrasing by using such phrases as, well, if I hear you correctly, or did you just say? Now, in doing this exercise, you want to make sure that you repeat back what the speaker just said. And for the other person as a speaker, if they don't give you the essence of your message, you stop them and say, that's not what I said. And I think if you practice this little simple skill-building exercise on active listening, you're definitely going to become a better communicator, and consequently, you'll connect much better with what the speaker is saying. The benefits of this exercise are tremendous, especially in emotionally charged situations. You'll be able to gain a side benefit of diffusing anger when you repeat the specifics of what the other person just stated. People naturally calm down when they realize they've been understood. Skilled customer service managers know this by repeating back what an angry customer has just said. This way they can calm down, they can remain calm, and remain in a very professional manner. So folks, I hope that you've enjoyed this lecture on active listening. I hope that by practicing active listening, you'll become a better communicator, and consequently, you'll have more valid and more enriched relationships both on the job and at home. Thank you for listening, and what I'll do for you now as a benefit to you for listening to my lecture, I'll give you a little tour here of Smathers Beach, and then I'll take you downtown and show you a little bit of downtown Key West. I'm not sure if you've ever been to Key West, but it is a great place to visit and vacation. We are actually right now 90 miles away from Havana, Cuba. We are closer to Havana than we are Miami Beach. In fact, many people down here will listen to Havana radio because the signal comes in better and they get better music, they say, than they can get on the mainland. So it's an interesting place, and I'll show you little parts of it and everything like that. Well, first let me give you a tour of the beach. And it looks like our sand man here, guy, has moving away, so we won't have too much noise here. The guy who's cleaning the beach with the tractor here. So hang on, and I'll give you a little tour of the beach. Well, as you can see, this is early in the morning. There aren't many people out. This is why I chose this time, so that there'd be less distraction to my lecture. But it's a beautiful sunny day here. It's going to be about 87 degrees. And this beach here has been noted in many travel magazines as one of the most popular beaches in the Caribbean. All the sand here in Key West is imported. This is not native to this island. This island was actually at one time just coral rock. And so the sand that you see here, much of it has been imported from the Bahamas. Okay, well, let's go downtown, and I'll give you a little highlights of downtown Key West. Well, folks, I'm standing here in front of one of the more famous hotels in Key West, Florida, the Casa Marina, built by the railroad man Henry Flagler, who built this for his railroad that came actually all the way down here to Key West, Florida. It stayed in operation until about 1935 when it was washed out by the hurricane. But it is one of our old classic hotels, and I thought you might like to take a look at it. I don't want to spend too much time here because it looks like the sun is setting and we need to get to Mallory Square so you can see the celebrations that take place there. So hang on and let's head downtown to Mallory Square. Here's one of my favorite downtown restaurants. So as you can see, a lot of dining in Key West is all outside, and it's a great place because the climate is so comfortable here year-round that you can eat outside most of the year and find it very comfortable. This is one of the places I like to come for pizza. Well, let's head on downtown. One of the most famous tourist sites in all of Key West is Sloppy Joe's Bar, made famous by its major patron, Ernest Hemingway, who lived here in Key West from around 1928, came here in April 1928 and stayed for about 10 years. He did some of his more important literary works while here in Key West, and just recently in the walls of the bar here, they found some of his original manuscripts, which is quite fascinating. Back in Hemingway's day, guys, you could have 10 beers for $1, or a shot of gin or whiskey for about 15 cents. But this is on a must-see list of all the tourists who come to see Key West. They've got to see what Sloppy Joe's Bar is. And this is where Ernest Hemingway would hang out almost every evening. Well, let's head on to Mallory Square. Hang on. Here we are at Mallory Square for the sunset celebration. As you can see, there are all kinds of artists that perform here every evening. You never know what kind of acts you're going to see. And it looks like the sun is just now setting. The sunsets here in Key West are absolutely phenomenal. It's one of the high spots of anyone's tours to come to Key West to see the sunset.
Take a picture of whatever you want to, buddy.
Tony, I don't like you walking around.
Video that camera is we don't like me. Yeah, but so your sister's like you.
I can't hear
you. Let's go and see what other artists we have here. Let's walk over here. Oh, here's an artist we should take a look at.
Oh no!
Top of the seat, foot unicycle, and juggle. Could you, sir, you come down? Could you go down to my bike? Come on out. Come on, you know.
Oh, I wish. Get your fucking camera, John.
You look too excited. You're trying to kill me. What is your name, sir? John. That's my mother.
Get a picture of that.
John, you feel the love? Yeah, I got it. Everybody watch. John gonna strip. Okay, John. No, don't do it, ladies and gentlemen. We got a family show. Everybody watch. You know, before I climb on this 8-foot unicycle, I need a volunteer. Let me see. Tim. Everybody say hello, Tim. Alright, Tim. See those torches? When I get on the top of that bike, you know when I get on there, you see, I get over there. Everybody watch. You know, I'm gonna need one more volunteer. The guys who actually speaks in. Sir, could you help me out? You know what? Oh, come on, sir. Watch. What's wrong? Angry person. All right, I got this guy.
Yes! Yay! They're brothers.
What is your name, sir? Matt? Hey, Matt, you stand right here. You're going to help me to get in this room. So you stand like this.
Oh my God.
Are you guys ready to say yeah?
Those are not.
Are you ready, Matt? Alright, stand right here. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, if I go off on this and I don't get out, you can all leave. I need to look help. Everybody. Give me those knives. Alright, man, you go to your John over there. On the count of 3, I let Matt in, shoulder go. You guys give Matt a big round of applause. Is that cool? Everyone say yeah. Yeah! 1, 2, 3, give it up for Matt. Where are you going, man? You're gonna help me to get on that bike, man. But for now, stay a little bit farther. Because if I kill you and you sue me, this is the crap you get, man. Are you all gonna see me do it? Say yeah.
Well, folks, that concludes our tour of downtown Key West, complete with Mallory Square. Hope you've enjoyed it. Thanks for listening to the lecture, and good luck with all your communication in the future. And I hope that someday, if you haven't been to Key West, you'll be able to come down here and visit. I'm sure you'd like it. Well, thanks again for watching, and enjoy the rest of the day. Take care now. Bye-bye.